Donald Trump today at a press conference with Netanyahu was boasting about the fact that a poll that was conducted stated that about 50% of Palestinians in Gaza state that they would leave. Take a listen to this over here and let's talk about it.
A recent poll showed that as many as half of Gazans would be willing to leave the Gaza Strip if afforded the opportunity to do so. Back in February, you said that all Gazans should be resettled.
I heard that number today, half of Gaza would leave. I've always said it. I said if they were given the opportunity to live in a better climate, they would move. They're there because they sort of have to be. I think it would be a great opportunity, but let's see if that opportunity presents itself. But we're helping the people of Gaza a lot. So is Israel, by the way. So we'll see what happens. But I saw that it was a poll. It was actually more than half the people would leave if they were given the opportunity. And I've been saying that for a long time.
First off, it wasn't more than half. I actually am going to show you guys the actual poll here because I want to talk about it. First thing, and I have to say this, even Israel is helping the people of Gaza, quote unquote. That's what the president of the United States is saying. Even after Israel bombed the hell out of them, murdered children, flattened all of Gaza to completely displace the population, just move them. Even after they grounded up Palestinians from all across historic Palestine and shoved them into Gaza, Israel was doing that because it loved them. Even when Israel uses high-level tech to surveil Palestinians in Gaza, it's doing that because it loves them. The words that come out of this man's mouth when he says this stuff, while of course we know the reason they want to actually displace them is because of the fact that they want to build their smart city. They want to make it a tax-free zone. They want to bring in investments. They want Elon Musk's Tesla factory to be right there in Gaza. And they just want to get rid of those pesky Palestinians that are getting in the way of their billion-dollar project. That's really what's going on here. So I'm going to show you guys this poll. It was conducted by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research, okay? And these polls have been conducted, they've been conducting polls like this routinely. This was done May 1st to the 4th. So this was months ago, by the way. And the poll asked them a number of different things. I'm going to scroll all the way down straight so we can just get to the results here. And it basically asked them, where is it? Here we go. Let's see. Would you leave if you were allowed to? Humanitarian conditions in Gaza, 53% say that they would. Let's go to right over here. Summary of the main findings. Here we are. Who will control Gaza after the war? A plurality expects that Hamas will remain in control of Gaza after the war. 40% expressed support when they were asked about the idea of the PA returning to the Gaza Strip. Okay, Trump and Israeli calls for displacing Palestinians in Gaza, while the majority says it does not want to leave the Gaza Strip after the, quote, war ends. A large minority wants to do that. Similarly, about half of Gazans are willing to apply to Israel to help them immigrate to other countries via Israeli ports and airports. Satisfaction with the performance of various parties during the war. As we did in our previous polls, we asked them about satisfaction with the actors, yada, yada, yada. Fear in the West Bank of the spread of the war from the Gaza Strip to the West Bank. 3/4 of West Bankers say that they fear the war spreading from the Gaza Strip to the West Bank. If the Gaza war comes to the West Bank, the overwhelming majority say they will not leave home to go to Jordan. The overwhelming majority. What's so interesting, and this entire research institute is a Western-backed group. It's completely Western-funded by organizations that likely want to see the Palestinians displaced as well. One way I know this is because whenever I'm just saying this as a Palestinian, the word Gazan starts to irritate me a little bit when they say the word Gazans, the Gazans and the West Bankers. No, just say the Palestinians from Gaza. Because when I hear that, I feel like they try to remove the fact that these people are Palestinian. I feel like it's in an effort to try to remove them. You'll see Laura Loomer do this all the time. Right-wing political commentator Laura Loomer. She'll call them Arabs or Gazans, and all an exclamation point. She really doesn't want to use the actual word Palestinian. She tries to erase that part of their identity. Regardless, what do you think's going to happen when you bomb the hell out of somebody for 3 years, for 2 years plus on end, just completely bombing them routinely, murdering their entire family, wiping them off the map? And then you ask them while they've lost limbs, you go up to them, they're crippled, they've lost limbs, they've lost their family. Hey, do you still want to be here now that we've completely destroyed your life? What are your thoughts? And then Trump goes out publicly after these polls are conducted and says, look, they actually more than half, which is not true. It was less. It was a bit less. More than half want to leave. After we've bombed them, we've leveled them, we've murdered their family, they now want to leave. See, we were doing them a favor. We just made them all like disfigured. We murdered their families. And now that we've put them through hell, they want to leave. So clearly we're doing them a favor. Clearly, the Zionists, the Israel Project, is doing them a favor. They want to leave. Do you guys understand how sick it is? How sick it is? And then he just wants to plop in his Tesla factory or whatever else. You know what's so funny about this too? Is that it always comes back to bite them in the ass. How do they not realize that? For example, all of these Palestinians they want to displace them to Somalia. They want to displace them to Jordan. They want to displace them to Syria. Some of those Palestinians are going to end up in the West. Do you guys get that? Some of them are going to end up in the United States. Some of them are going to end up in Europe. As much as you try to put up the strongest border control, you can spend millions and billions of dollars on the border. When you displace a population, they still come into the West. That's just how it happens because you can't keep them all out. How much money now is Europe going to have to spend on border security to make sure that Palestinians from Gaza aren't displaced and end up in Europe? Because clearly the Europeans don't want them either. They want to remain in their land. How much money is Europe now going to have to spend on border control? Where are they going to go? Are they going to go to Syria? Are they going to go to Lebanon? Are they going to go to Jordan? How many of the Middle Eastern countries has Israel already bombed and made failed states? You want them to go to Syria, where ISIS is still running rampant? You think it's going to be safe there? Some Syrians still haven't went back to Syria, and the Syrian civil war is apparently done. And they're still not going back. Why? Because it's still not safe in a lot of parts. So now they just want to push them there. You think that they're going to stay there if they don't feel like they're safe where they're at? No. So they're going to seek home elsewhere. And then Europe's going to start to get pissed off. Why are these damn brown people here? That's always what they say. Why are they here? Why are they in our countries? Without realizing that they supported the damn project that forced them, that pushed them out of their homes. They supported it since 1947. Okay, since 1947, the amount of bombing the United States has done in the Middle East for that project's security, and the amount of refugees that project has caused, that ended up in Europe, that ended up in the United States. How many Iraqis ended up coming to the United States after the Iraq War? I believe it's somewhere around the 60 to 100,000. And many more in Europe. I'm talking, but specifically in the United States. It might be more, actually. So if you have a correct number, let me know in the comments. All right, but it's tens of thousands, absolutely. Europe, much more. How about Syria? Well, I know for a fact that Germany took over 2 million Syrians after the Syrian civil war. We call it a civil war, Syrian civil war in air quotes, but it was a proxy war between Russia and the United States. Israel wanted Bashar al-Assad overthrown as well. During Obama's administration, the CIA was training ISIS fighters. This is all fact. This is Operation Timber Sycamore. So we did all of these operations. We destabilized the countries, create refugee crisis. They go into Western countries, and then the Western civilians, the Europeans, are seeing all of these new people come in that clearly have a different culture. And then you start to see this right-wing movement rise in Europe. Why the hell are these brown people here? That's what they always say. Why are the Muslims here? Apparently, they just don't want them there. Well, did you ever consider that the fact that your government is bombing the hell out of these Middle Eastern countries, and then every single time you knock one country out, you have less countries that refugees can go to? So it's not just like, okay, we're going to bomb Syria, and then they're going to have to seek homes elsewhere. It's like, okay, you bomb Syria, so now Syria's crossed out. So if there's another refugee crisis, well, Syria is one less country they can go to. Now, if you bomb Syria and Iraq and Lebanon, then you end up crossing out a lot of potential countries they could have sought refuge in. Libya, and I've made a lot of videos on this, Gaddafi made Libya one of the strongest countries in Africa. Sovereign wealth fund, free education, free healthcare. So a lot of Africans seeking opportunity elsewhere would go to Libya. They try to find a better life, and they'd go to Libya and they'd pick up work in Libya. Well, what ended up happening to Gaddafi? The NATO-backed uprising that ended up leading to his death. Now Libya is a failed state, and Libya now is one of the biggest spots where migrants cross from the Mediterranean Sea into Europe. I believe, over 3 million migrants now since Gaddafi's fall have made it into Europe through the sea passage from Libya. Why? Because Libya is now one less country that those migrants can go to. So all the migrants that would go to Libya to seek work now go use Libya as a passage to get to Europe. Because the United States did that for Israel. So now with Palestinians in Gaza, you think they're just going to go to another country and everything's going to be done and they're going to get their damn Tesla factory and they're going to make their smart city? Americans and Europeans are going to end up having to take some of them in. As much as you don't want to see them there, well, guess what? America has been bought out by a lobby, is bought out by billionaire Zionists that are pushing this stuff. And that's how we get to the situation we're in today. And it's reached a point where, this is kind of why I really, and the reason I specifically like hammering it into more of the right wingers, more of the people that truly just don't want migrants in their countries. The reason I think it's important to hammer that fact into them specifically is because of the fact that I think the second you get it to click with more of the conservatives that want to keep their culture, that don't want to see themselves in the West become majority countries, that don't want to see that. I think the reason I really harp on that is because if they can make that click and they realize that their actions supporting this project in the Middle East and their government's actions are what's actually causing the refugee crisis, and they can switch the blame from the refugees in their countries to the cause of the reason the refugees are in their countries, everything would be instrumentally better. Things could change very, very rapidly. If you made the shift, instead of hating the people that are there, hate the people that cause them to be there. You understand? And that's something specifically on the right where if they make that click, it's going to be amazing. That's why when I make my videos, I try to appeal more to conservative-minded people because I want them to understand that. With people on the left, it's easier to show them images of what's going on in Gaza. Or I don't want to say easier, but it's typically, when it comes to the left, you can show them the destruction in Gaza, and they'll do it more because of the fact that these Palestinians are suffering. But with the right, you really have to try to appeal to their senses a little bit more. And you have to try to show them how their actions or what they support ends up backfiring. And this is kind of what people really have to get. So, you know what? They want to displace the Palestinians from Gaza. The West Bank is next. My family's in the West Bank. How the hell do you think I ended up in the United States? Well, it's because I come from 2 generations of refugees. My grandmother was a refugee. She was born in Haifa. Haifa is now, of course, in Israel proper. She had to flee from Haifa back to our original village in the West Bank, where all of our extended family is. And then from the West Bank, when Yitzhar was established in 1982, she had to flee the West Bank as well. Ended up in Kuwait. My mom was born in Kuwait. During Saddam Hussein's invasion, my mom fled Kuwait, went to Jordan, married my dad, and they came to the United States. So it's 2 generations of just being transferred all around the Middle East. And every single aspect of it is because of Israel. You get it? All of it. So if you don't want to see people like me in this country, you have to realize that I'm one data point in a plethora of other data points. So my story is just one of many. And stories like mine are going to keep happening if America keeps supporting that project. And then you start to see this right-wing movement in the United States getting pissed off about the fact that there are so many minorities and so many migrants in their country. Well, how long can you keep doing this stuff for? It's cause and effect. How do you expect it to stop? I love being in this country. I love being in America, but I'm also pretty well aware of the reason why I'm here. And I'm glad to be here, love to be an American. I want to contribute, but it's important to understand the cascade of events that led to me being here. And I think that people really need to start to understand that. So it ends up, it just comes from greed. It comes from wanting to just displace an entire population, ethnically cleanse them. It's another buzzword that people don't like to hear, but literally just removing the entire ethnic group and moving them somewhere else. And it's going to happen to the West Bank next. It seems like that's where we're headed. I don't know what's going to stop it at this point. I don't know what's going to stop it. because apparently everything up until this point wasn't enough to get the world, to get governments to wake up and try to take action. So what's going to be enough? I don't think anything is. I think they're just going to keep doing this, and they're going to keep trying to get away with as much as they can, because so far it seems like they've been able to do it and nobody stopped them. Nobody stopped them. So that's unfortunately where I feel like things are headed, unless the consequences of not taking action are worse than the consequences of taking action. Unless enough people wake up and the governments feel that being silent and not taking action is actually going to be more of a detriment, we're going to just keep seeing this happen. And I don't see how that's going to start. Maybe Israel does one more mistake and all of a sudden people start to wake up and it reaches a critical threshold. I don't know. You let me know. So anyways, guys, that's really it for this video. If you found it interesting, I'd appreciate it if you click the subscribe button below and give it a thumbs up as well. Would help me reach more people.